Hey there everyone, we're looking at some dash cam footage I took from Tim's Thicket when I was down there on the weekend. So I just thought I'd talk you through a few things rather than having nothing there. So this is the main entrance to Tim's. If you haven't been here before, this is the main portion. So you probably deflate, we deflate our tyres just back at that point there. You don't really need to until you get towards the top, because all this is really just normal two-wheel drive sort of area, but it's an open space back there, so that's where you do it. And this is where you come around so that people can pass each other pretty well. And when you get to the top of the hill, which will come up in a second, that's where you would need to have had deflated your tyres by, so it's always a good idea to do it at the start. But this is just showing you the way in, so you can have a look at this, and that way if you ever go down there, you know what to expect when you get there. So as you come up towards the top of the hill, we're going to have two sort of avenues. You can go left or right, and left takes you towards where the exit is, and right is towards the entrance. So you go right if you're coming in, and most cars you'll see should be coming out of the left point. And they've fixed up, due to the issue with the water and the storms, the exit point had been stopped, but now it's been fixed and you can actually get out. You'll see later in the video I take the exit out, so it's still a little bit underdeveloped, I'd say, but you can get through there quite easily. Well, not quite easily. Let's just say you have to do a little bit of effort to get through without getting too stuck there. There's also a little spot off there to the right there of the screen where if you didn't deflate at the start, you can sort of deviate here off there to deflate. So this is at the top of the hill to the entrance. So as I said, there's a left or right, and we can take the right to go actually down onto the entrance to Tim's Thicket. And when you come down to the actual entry point, the entry point area, you got this nice cove where you can actually see from here, you can see the breakers that break out further on the reef, and then you have a nice flat bit. This is towards the low tide area, so you can see there's a fair amount of beach available to you to use. I'm up in the main ruts at the moment, but there is a fair amount of beach in that whole area that you can have access to, and a lot of people will park up and fish either through the area that I'm driving in, but off the main line, although that can get kind of soft at times, because when I was down there a couple of weeks prior to, a lot of people were getting stuck in this area that I'm actually going kind of slowly in. I don't know why, but they were just shifting off this main line and were getting stuck in the softer sand. And then you can see here just to the left, that's the exit point that you have to sort of take out when you come back out, but when we get towards the end, you'll see it. Then it comes to this sort of I'd say a plateau of sand. So even at high and low tide, there's this big open sort of section where the reef is at low tide exposed to the right hand side, and you have quite a lot of room to maneuver, so quite a lot of cars generally park up on that big flat open space, and it's generally pretty firm unless it's been churned up through a lot of use of people that might not have deflated their tyres, or for whatever reason they've churned up the area. But usually it's nice and sort of firm to drive along. It's not too difficult really. Even the section I'm in at the moment, and I drop down in a minute to take some advantage of some of the other areas, because when you're up in this rut line here, you can see there's a fair bit of movement in the car. That's why you can see I jump off that main one to try and see if I can find a softer, more gentle ride. Not so weedy this section, but there is a fair bit of reef all along this section of Tim's. So you sort of have to pick and choose where you want to fish. Most people fish at the entry point, and there is one section. See, I come right down towards the bottom during low tide, and you can see it's much smoother to drive on now than it was before. The camera isn't shaking as much. This is pretty firm, this whole section through here that I'm on, mostly because it's been wet from higher tide, and that's firmer sand than a little bit higher up. But yeah, there's a lot of reef along this area of Thames, and Thames isn't a long beach at all. So there's not a huge amount of space or a huge amount of areas that you can find a fish out of. So you sort of got to pick and choose. I think there's one area just there to the right actually where there's a section where it's open between two reefs where you can actually get some fishing done where you're not going to get snagged on the bottom where there's reef. Even that open section, if you go out a fair distance, you'll hit reef as you come in, so you got to be careful that you're going to get snagged. Now this is the first boulder that you can come across. Now in low tide you can come around it just like I'm doing now. In high tide you can't do this. This is kind of flooded in. So that's the first boulder that you come across as you come through, and you can keep going along here. It's very much similar sort of a beach as earlier, so still kind of reefy sections, but you can get some really nice areas that it isn't as bad. In this first video, because this is the video of us coming all the way down and then all the way back to the start, but then I cut to a video I did earlier because I've come all the way to the end. There's some guys up there on the left that usually come down here for surfing because it's a great surfing spot where I am at the moment, and a lot of guys surf out there. So they park up on the top of the left, which is off the beach. You can go inland to get into this sort of area here, because just beyond this point, right about, as you can see, this boulder right up ahead of us, there's I turn around here, but I do another video, I actually drive further down, I actually mean to cross there, so you get a close-up of that. But if you go around that point, you end up pretty much being in a position where you can go all the way to White Hills if you wanted to. And I had intended to at that stage, but got a co-pilot who didn't really want to seem that keen on going into it. You get when I get up close, you kind of see that it's a kind of a tricky way to get around even at low tide. So we just follow the tracks that we made all the way back. As you can see, it's nice. This beach is kind of nice through this section. It's not as dirty brown as sometimes the main opening portion of Thames is. A lot of people stay at that main opening because there is that reef that's further out, and there is some chances of people catching fish in that open area. One guy's caught a tailor in there. While we were there on the weekend where this footage was taken, some guys caught some little stuff, some reef fish, herring. Wasn't a lot on offer that day, but it can be, particularly because that was at low tide. You're not really going to get a lot, and during this time of the weather with the sunshine out, even less a chance. But for a four-wheel driving beach, it's great for if you haven't done a lot of four-wheel driving and you want a beach that isn't so bad. I mean, you can see this. I'm just going through I haven't been able to fun going through the wash around the boulder. But as you can tell, it's not. And even to the left here, you can see that's kind of reefy-ish, so it's sort of harder. So if you did want to go slow, you could sort of use that reef to your advantage rather than going across the sand. But it's nice and neat. Like, it's not as soft and it's not as mushy sand that you get stuck in some areas like that one, where it's really soft and you sort of sink into it. As you can see here, you can just motor along without any issues. You can see where I'm following the tracks that I made when I came in, and you can see the indentation that there's hardly well, there's very minor indentation, so I'm not sinking in that deeply into the actual sand at all. So you can tell that it's kind of firm. So it's a great beach if you're wanting to just do a little bit of forward driving. But like I said, and as you can see in the video, it's very short, so there's not a lot of room if you are wanting to forward drive and explore. There's not a huge amount of room, and if you're there at high tide, you can't go around those boulders. Well, you could try going around those boulders. I wouldn't recommend it, only because it's very difficult to see what's underneath, and you don't know how deep that water is, particularly if you don't have a snorkel or anything. Plus, if you do find the sand softens up and all it's stuck there during high tide, right up, wedged up against the boulder, bad idea. So this is towards the end of this one. As we come back into the main, that's that big open space that I was talking about. So this is where most people will park up and fish this big open section to the left. You can see the exit point right there on my right as I go past it, and just a bit further up you'll see the entry point we come in on. So to the left hand side usually where most people fish off, right on the shoreline, and I was staying low just for the smoothness of the ride. And in a second I'll just transition over to the next portion where I've just done a bit of the clip, because this is where I've just turned around to set up. This next clip is just catches us right at that point where the last boulder is. So this is the boulder. If you wanted to go to White Hills, this is the one you'll use. You'll come to this point and you'll go around here. Now I sneak up, I stop here for a second while conversation takes place about the fact that I want to go. But as you can see, the water isn't too bad. You can see there's reef right there, and the water is very shallow. And if you just go around, as you can see the breakers a bit further out. I actually go in a little bit into that water section. It is quite firm to get there, so you can get around it. It's just I was discouraged at the time to not do it, so I took my co-pilot's advice and got out of there quick smart. As much as I wanted to have some fun, but anyway, so I zip out. The only reason why I'm leaving this playing was to show you where the exit point is, and then I'll pretty much stop my talking because my voice isn't the best thing for videos. You don't want to do videos to listen to me talk, but the exit point comes up soon. But in preference, I prefer like White Hills and Preston. They're great beaches and long sections where you can find lots of little sections that you can park up in. There can be a lot of weed in certain parts, but also a lot of nice blue ocean that's free, and less of a lot of the issues you get here with reef and rocks that you can get snagged with. So you have a lot of less problems like that. But this one is a nice four-wheel driving type beach where if you just want to have a crack where you're a little bit new to it but want to test out how you can go. Not to mention there's usually a lot of people hanging around or going to and fro on this beach, so it's kind of popular both for fishing and people come down here and swim as well. So even if you do get stuck, you're generally going to have a lot of people around to give you a hand in most of the situations. So this is, I think we're coming up to the plateau section where it opens up. No, I think we got a little bit more to go. But yeah, this is an ideal beach for this. And remember, so there's the entry point. The exit point's now been sort of cut out through the use of people using it. So that's now the exit point that you take, and it takes you around, so you avoid people coming down the hill, unlike, say, like White Hills, where it's really one way in, one way out, unless you go all the way to Preston, and that has a separate entry and exit sort of point, whereas this one is a bit different. But hey, what can you do? It's But it's nice. It's a nice little place to go if you want to have a little crack at the fish, because sometimes it can be good for that as well. I think, yeah, there's the platoon coming up. As you can see, so this is a stage where a lot more people were showing up. So this is later in the day. It's about 10 o'clock, I think ish. And you can already see this, there's a couple of cars already parked up. So there's usually quite a few people parked on that plateau. So you generally, if you do have issues, so there's another car down there. So this is the coming up to the exit point on my right, just past this car right there. You have to veer up right pretty hard, and you go up through this little section here. It can be quite bumpy, as you can tell, but as long as you get through that little first section when you turn right, it's easy. And from here, it's pretty firm, pretty smooth, and then you hit basically almost gravel tarmacy type road. So I turn my four-wheel drive off by now. I don't even need it once you get past that point. But that's pretty much the entirety of Tim's inner video. So if you haven't been there, you now know the terrain, what it's like, and how to go about it, the entries and exit points. So hope that's helpful, and I'll see you next time.